And I found as a manager that it is really hard to motivate people who actually don't like what they do. There is a way forward. There is an opportunity to do something about that malaise. Hi, welcome to the Make Minutes Matter podcast. I'm your host, Karen Gilhoolly, and this is our first ever episode. Welcome. So today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, what I stand for, and most importantly, how this podcast might help you make your minutes matter. So before we get into it, maybe I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my journey. So it started a while ago, and originally I thought I was going to be a teacher. I was very excited about that profession, and then somewhere right before I entered college, my guidance counselor suggested that that profession wouldn't be quite right for me. So she set me on a path to pursue a career in law. And what I found as I was going down that road, it really wasn't for me either. So I was at a crossroads. I didn't quite know what to do. My father knew what to do. When I came home to tell him I was leaving law school, he suggested that I should go find a job very quickly. After investing in my college education, he felt that there was nothing better than for me to go to work at the first job available, which is what I did. Unfortunately, that job, which was a 100% commission-based sales position, selling high-end capital equipment in an economy that wasn't allowing anyone to even buy pencils, it wasn't the best position, and I became very frustrated. While I was there, I had a very, very terrible car accident, and I was laid up for a very long time getting better, almost 2 years. And during that time of recovery, I had a lot of time to think about what did I really want to do with my life? That these minutes that were almost taken away from me were really important. And so I made a promise to myself, right there and then, that when I went back to work, that I was going to go find a job that I was absolutely, totally in love with. Nothing short of that would work for me. And so I set out looking for that job. And again, this is an environment where the economy was tight, jobs were scarce, but I pursued. I went on interview after interview. I received many offers, only to find that it wasn't quite the right job. And then one day, it came to me. I received a call from a recruiter on a Friday afternoon, and he told me that he had found my dream job. So on Monday, I went in for the interview and competed against probably close to 100 other people for a job that would allow me to be an account manager for a large global bank with a new product that they were releasing out into the market. My job would not be to sell. My job would be to come in after the sale and help the customers understand how to use the product and then find its benefit over the long term of the relationship. So through a roundabout way, I finally got that job. And once I was in, there was no looking back. It was the most wonderful celebration of everything that I bring to the table. It gave me an opportunity to work with my clients and teach them. It gave me an opportunity to think creatively. It gave me an opportunity to actually take on an unofficial leadership role within my group. And it was a lot of fun. I was working with smart people. The bank really believed in our product. There was no way but up in this particular role and with this particular company. And then everything changed. The competition came in, really created some problems for the unique opportunity that we were bringing to our market, and we were forced at that point to reassess our product and redevelop something completely, totally new. And I was given an opportunity to participate in that. And it was such a great, wonderful experience to be with all these smart people at the table. Me, Karen Gilhoolly. Who would ever think that I'd be part of launching something really cool that would ultimately change the way that payments are made around the globe? Very, very interesting stuff. Anyway, it was at this point that I ultimately had an opportunity to start managing people. And one thing I found very quickly is that just because I believed that being in a role that really celebrated who you were, that was important to me, but it wasn't necessarily important to other people. And I found as a manager that it is really hard to motivate people who actually don't like what they do. And so it was really at that point that I started to develop a theory that I call the 3-bucket philosophy. And it evolved over time, but let's say at the beginning, it started with the idea of being either in or out. And the choice to be in means that you really love what you're doing. It doesn't mean that every second of the day you're, in ecstasy, but it does mean that the predominant amount of time that you spend in the workplace is spent in a good place, where you feel like you're contributing, where you feel like you're getting something out of it. The alternative is all out, where you don't feel that drive, where you don't feel engaged, where you don't feel that your time is really worth it. In today's vernacular, we might call it quiet quitting. Whatever you want to call it. As a manager who has things that need to get done, not only for the team, but for yourself, that's a really, really tough situation to be in. So I found at that point that the best way to deal with people who were not completely engaged, who were not aligned, was to sit and have a conversation. And what I found from all these discussions that I've had, both at that point as well as throughout my career, is that many people don't spend any time thinking about whether they're happy at work or not. And that's really a shame, because most people were the person I was when my dad told me to go get that job. Most people take the first job that comes along, and they take it for a variety of reasons. They have a mortgage, they have kids, they've got educations to pay for, they've got lifestyles they want to put up, they want to uphold. Whatever it might be, there's the driver for taking on a particular role or a job is typically not because you are in love with it. It's because it's a means to an end. Now, granted, when you start in a job, I don't know very many people who take on a role thinking that it's going to create the misery. But over time, if it's not aligned with you, that is what happens. You lose your spark. Once you come out of the euphoria of getting the job and realizing that it's not quite what you thought it was going to be, you fall into a bit of a rut. And unless you have either the wherewithal within you to make a change, or someone brings it to you, either in a management role, some type of mentorship, whatever it might be, if that doesn't happen, you continue on until something else happens. So maybe you're one of those people that's feeling lost. Or maybe you're a senior leader in an organization that has a team where people are not demonstrating or bringing their best selves to work. Or maybe you're really on the front line as a manager and worried about how you get everyone focused on delivering whatever the objective might be. This podcast is really about giving voice to all of these people and helping you know that there is a way forward. There is an opportunity to do something about that malaise. I really believe that everyone deserves to be not just satisfied at work. I believe everyone should be happy and engaged with their work. And that's a very big difference. And we're going to be talking to people over the coming months about their journeys. And I hope that their stories, as well as things you may learn about me as we go forward, will give you hope, will inspire you, will give you the courage to make the change that brings that spark back to your eye. So let's talk a little bit about why minutes matter. Well, in my book, minutes are actually the ultimate currency. They're more precious than anything because we don't know how many of them that we have, and we don't know when they are going to stop. And so it's really up to us to take this beautiful allowance that we were given when we were born and put it to the absolute best use. Now, most of us don't think about this. We don't. We get up in the morning, we plow through the day, and we go to bed, wake up, and do it again. But what did we actually do with those minutes? So if you think of minutes almost as if they were currency, like pennies, nickels, or dimes, pick whichever denomination you want, and think about the investment that you make with those minutes. Where do you put them? Do you put them into a place where you're going to get something back for that minute invested? Are you going to put it in a place where you insert it, but you don't get anything back? You're just kind of in a void, a limbo. Or do you put it into a place where you invest that minute and you get nothing back for it? Nothing at all. In fact, it takes away, almost as if you invested in a bad stock. I learned, again, through my journey, that the best place to put my minutes was in a place where I felt great about that investment. That when I put a minute in, it gave me more than a minute's worth of energy, happiness, productivity, you name it. When I put the minute into that particular topic or subject or project, whatever it might be, that it gave me something back that allowed me to in turn share that with other people. And you'll see that in groups of people that are highly energized, highly engaged with what they're doing. Take a look at that. Think about it in your heads. Think about the last time you saw a group of people that were really into whatever it is that they were doing. You can feel the energy, the electricity that's flowing between them. Now, contrastly, let's think about a place where that's not going on. It's typically silent. There's not a lot going on, is there? We deserve to put our minutes into that first scenario. I call that scenario bucket number 1. That second scenario that I talked about, that would either be bucket number 2 or bucket number 3. Bucket 2 is probably where you'd hear nobody speaking. Big silence. Bucket 3 would be where you'd actually hear something a little bit different. You would hear people complaining and moaning and groaning about how they hate what they're doing, how it's so painful. They're not excited about what they're doing. They actually look as if someone has taken the battery out of them and it's slowly winding itself down. That's what that looks like. So the investment of our minutes is the most important thing that we can ever do in our lives, to put it into the right place, to get something back out of it for yourself, for the people around you, and for the world at large. We need to do a better job of this. And we're going to be talking with people over the coming months about their journey and how they've made a different decision to move away from kind of the negative side of investment into that more productive, positive side where life is great, electric, vibrant, and energetic. So there was a time not too long ago where I was in a role leading a very, very large team of people around the globe. Almost 1,800 people were counting on me to lead them through a big transformation, incredible project with a wonderful outcome where we'd have more delighted customers, happier people inside the organization, just a really great project. And what happened is that I wasn't able to give the role 100% anymore. So at home, both my parents were dying. And I found that I was conflicted between giving my time to work and giving my time to my parents. Neither one of them offered much option. Both of them demanded 100%, and I felt as if I were at the middle of all of that. I remember waking up one day, my husband saying to me, "Karen, where are you?" And I said to him, "What do you mean, where am I? I'm sitting right here." He goes, "No, you're not. The person I married, the person I love, the person that has been doing all these fabulous things in the workplace is gone. And she has been replaced by this bitter, angry person. What happened?" Now, of course, I didn't believe him. So the day went on with the usual crises of managing a big global business. And at the end of the day, we went to dinner, as we normally do. We went to our favorite restaurant. So my husband on one side, me on the other. We had our favorite waiter. Everything was pretty normal. The only thing that was different is that I noticed my husband stretching a lot, like this, with his arms. And I just thought, well, maybe he's bored listening to me complain, because it seemed that every time I was going off on a rant, he would start to physically react to it. So the evening ended, we went home, went to sleep. The next morning, my sister called and asked me to go over to my dad's house and to talk to him about using his time more safely, because my father, at the end of his life, decided that he wanted to become very productive with all of these last-minute projects that he had never finished. So I listened to my sister ask me to go over and talk to him. Meanwhile, I'm getting ready to walk out the door, and my husband calls. And he says, "Karen, I want you to see something." And I was walking out the door, and again, my patience for these things was very short at the time. I said, "I'm leaving to go to see my dad." My husband says, "Come here." So I went into the living room, and there he was with his iPad. He goes, "I want you to look at this." So I looked down at the iPad, and there I saw myself from the night before. And all of that stretching, that was my husband giving cues to the waiter to turn his phone on and off so that he could capture me on one of the most unbiased judges in the world, the video camera. And I had a chance to see what he saw. And it wasn't pretty. It was really ugly. It was a person who had lost their way, a person who was bitter, a person who was confused, conflicted, all those things that I had for my whole life in leadership positions and in my personal endeavors. I never wanted to be that person, ever. But there I was. So that was the vision in my mind as I got in the car and drove to my dad's house. I walk in the house, his house, and he has erected a table saw in his front room. And my dad at this point, who was a very big man for most of his life, he's actually down to, I want to say, about 75 pounds. He weighed less than I do. And here he is heaving these big pieces of wood onto the table saw to finish up this project that he's working on. And so I walk in the door, and he says, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Dad, what are you doing? You're going to hurt yourself." And he looked at me straight in the eye, and he said something pretty remarkable. He said, "You know what, Karen? I'm going to die soon. And I'm going to use every single one of these minutes doing something productive." And I thought to myself, good heavens, what is wrong with this situation? Here I am with many more minutes, hopefully, than what my father had, and I literally could not get up in the morning. I hated getting up in the morning. I couldn't wait to go back to sleep at night. And here's my father, who is on the opposite end of the scale, trying to cram as much into everything that he possibly could. And it was at that moment I knew that there was something dreadfully wrong with the way I was living my life and with the way I was spending my minutes, and that there was only one person that could make that change. It wasn't my dad telling me to make a change. It wasn't my husband telling me to make a change. It wasn't anybody at work telling me to make a change. I had to make that change. And that's when I made that decision, that it was time to do something different with my life. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here right now, is because if I could fall to that level of despair, being so positive, being so focused on being purposeful with the way I spend my time, and being totally in love with what I do in the workplace, and with other parts of my life for that matter as well, it could happen to anyone. And so I think this message is really important to bring to the world. The last thing I want you to know before we end today is that making a change of this magnitude is scary. It forces you to look in the mirror or in the video camera, or actually open your ears to listen to what people are saying, because they will see it before you will, most likely. The ones that care are the ones that are going to share with you the fact that something's off. And when you hear those words, don't turn away. Lean into it. Examine it. Think about, am I truly happy? Is this really working for me? Now, this doesn't mean that you have to go leave your job, abandon everything that you've worked for in your whole life. It means that you actually have to take stock of the way you're spending your time and figuring out how you are going to make different decisions with those investments that we talked about. You can be in the same job. How you think about that job, the types of things you do in that job, the way that you interact with other people, that's all within your control. And I hope that you find courage enough to be able to act on that, because it's worth it. It's worth the investment. That's all the time we have for today, but there's many more minutes to come. So, signing off, Karen Gilhoolly, host of the Make Minutes Matter podcast. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Make Minutes Matter. If you haven't done so already, please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube or click the follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And let me know what you thought of today's conversation by following us on Instagram at Karen Gilhoolly 1. That's Karen, Karen, Gilhoolly, Gilhoolly, and the number 1. Let's make every moment in your career truly matter. Have a great day.